Welcome to Connection Artist, the podcast for building better relationships by design. Love and human connection are fundamental needs for all of us, but how do we cultivate lasting, emotionally healthy, fulfilling relationships with ourselves and others? I'm Luca, and I invite you to join me in meeting everyday people with diverse backgrounds and ages who all have one thing in common: a genuine passion for fostering meaningful connections. You'll hear their heartwarming stories and practical advice for building lasting marriages, lifelong friendships, and self-love. In this season 1, we sit down with 10 couples, learn how they met, and hear the secrets behind how they've built lasting marriages. Their insights will inspire and enlighten you. I also interview guests who found and maintained warm, lasting friendships for decades, and they're sharing how they did it. And lastly, we can't forget the importance of growing a loving relationship with ourselves, so we discuss building self-love and confidence. I've brought together a fantastic lineup of guests for you to meet who will share their unique stories and invaluable communication and relationship advice. Together, we're learning the secrets to building more meaningful, fulfilling relationships, one conversation at a time. I'm Luca, and I invite you to join me in becoming a connection artist. All right, well, welcome back to our podcast. Today we have Patrick and Lauren joining us. They are two wonderful people that I met through Patrick's mom, actually. They've been married for 12 years. They're in their 40s. They have a really interesting love story, and I can't wait to share it with you. So, starting off, can you tell us how you met?
Yeah, it's a story that we've that everyone asks us kind of all the time.
Many times.
Yeah, it's been told many times. I'll give the brief version.
I'll do the color.
Yeah, you'll do the color. I in my former life, I was a dancer on tour with Wicked, and we toured through Minneapolis. And it was our very first night off, and I was with my friends. We were in downtown Minneapolis. It was November, so it was cold. We, of course, spent the day at the Mall of America because that's what you do the first time you ever visit Minneapolis from out of town. And it was a Monday night. We were looking for somewhere to go for dinner, and downtown Minneapolis, there was really not many options. And I had walked by the Dakota every day that week, coming back and forth from the theater to where we were staying, and I would always hear like this jazz music playing.
The Dakota Jazz Club.
The Dakota Jazz Club.
Downtown Minneapolis. 1010 Nicollet Avenue.
So our night off, I was like, oh, hey guys, this was seems like a really cool spot. Let's check it out. And so we walk in, and this handsome fella was the bartender. And so my girlfriends were my wingmen that night, and they'll say that our eyes met, and there was nobody else in the bar that night. Patrick was doing his charming routine, his charming bit that I'm sure he's done on a few. Perfected
that over
the bartending,
many years.
No, the bartending kind of flirt, where you lean over, you kind of fling the napkin toward the lady. What can I get you to drink? It lands right in front of her.
I mean, it's so cliche to say, but it kind of was, because I still remember that moment actually, and it kind of was one of those across the room kind of things where we just sort of made eye contact, and then whatever, we met out later that night, and then kind of...
Yeah, you came to meet us, which was also really cool. The Dakota didn't have food that late. We got there at 9 o'clock, and so Patrick recommended a couple spots across the street, and we said, oh, okay, we'll go to the local. And I remember we went over to the local, and my girlfriends, they weren't feeling the vibe, and maybe they weren't serving food or whatever, so we ended up going next door to Barrio, and I was so nervous because I said, we told him we'd be at the local.
And these are all restaurants, right?
Yeah, these are all restaurants and bars
part of Minneapolis.
In Minneapolis.
Yeah, Nicollet Avenue.
Yeah, but I was so nervous because I was like, well, what if he does come and he goes to the local and we're not there, and then he's just going to give up. So one of my girlfriends, because I couldn't go back, one of my girlfriends went back over to the Dakota to let you know that we ended up at the other place.
I remember that too.
So it was kind of like love at first sight when she walked in. Pretty instantly, you guys were attracted to each other.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I guess I... Oh.
I was attracted to you, for
really?
sure.
I mean, me too.
Gosh.
But no,
they're both very attractive people, by the way. I mean, I know that you guys can't see them, but...
But I think it was... It grew over time because luckily she was in town for a 5-week run, right? Mm-hmm. And so we got to spend a lot of time because we had a very similar schedule. I was bartending. She was in the show, so she was working at night. I was working at night. So during the day, we just got to spend time together. So much so that it was like we met, like, I don't know, it was early November, I think. Actually, I think it was like...
It was November 10th.
I think it was like the election, like Obama had just been elected 2 days before or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that was just a marker. But she came to Thanksgiving at my mom's house.
Mm-hmm. So within a few weeks, this lady was meeting the family.
Yeah, within a few weeks. In fact, when I told my mom and sister, because I didn't even know what Wicked was, I was like, what is that? I have no clue what Wicked is.
He wasn't initially a musical theater fan, which is what he's letting us know.
And I
had no idea. So I told my mom and my sister, and they're like, what? And they kind of freaked out. I'm like, okay, so this is kind of a big deal.
This was, of course, in 2008 when it was like the first time through that like everyone, like nobody could get tickets. It was like the Hamilton of 2008, if you will.
But then I saw it and I kind of blew my mind. It was like, wow, this is amazing. So we got to spend a lot of time together, and it just kind of grew from there. I guess she kept traveling, and I would go visit her. And actually, I was thinking about it. And I wanted to kind of jump forward to one of your other questions you had in there, like a life, a life event that this person sort of helped you through. And unfortunately, that year, almost just probably just over a month after I had met Lauren, my dad died. And it was something that, obviously it's a huge life-changing thing, but I had this new relationship with this person I was very excited about. And I think that really did help me through a lot of that.
I never knew that.
Well, I mean, I think that it was something like, it was almost an escapism, that it was like, I just really don't want to deal with this on my own.
So she kind of gave you like something, not like a distraction almost.
Yeah, and I think so. And it was just exciting because she was traveling around the country, and I wasn't really happy with what I was doing anyway. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna put my full, as much energy as I guess I did. Which
during that time when you were kind of processing the death of your father, and I'm so sorry to hear that. Did you know, Lauren, that his dad had passed away? And,
yes.
How did she comfort or support you during that?
I mean, they had moved on to Detroit. And so, it was something where it was still this distant thing, but she was as present as she could be, but still it was something where, I had my family and I had all that, but it was still something that, with this person that I really didn't know that well, I guess, that I could sort of, confide in her. And again, be like, I'm going to come to Detroit. I'm going to see you. I'm going to get out of this cycle. So I think it really did kind of help me in a big way.
And what were you thinking during that time? Because you had just met this guy and suddenly something significant, that's a huge thing to happen in your life. Did you feel comfortable, showing up, or were you kind of I don't really know what to do right now? Or how did you feel during that?
So I was grateful that I got to meet his dad a couple of times.
That's right,
he came to the show.
Come see the show, and he was sick at that time too. So
so
that was pretty cool. He was pretty stoked. He was like, "Oh, that was amazing." that was cool.
Fun.
Yeah.
And then at Thanksgiving he was there. So I just felt, the sense of loss, and it was really hard for me not being there physically. And with a show like what I was in, it was also difficult to get time off, especially for, of course, a death. They would have given me the day off, but it's like, okay, this, you just met this guy. You need 2 days off to go to Minneapolis for his father's funeral. Who is this? So I didn't get to be there for the funeral, but that is one of a big regret that I didn't even,
I mean,
try to do that.
I didn't expect you to be there, but it was. I guess my point was, and again, I was jumping forward to the question, but I think it was relevant because. That was a very quick test in the relationship, that it was okay, this huge thing happened, and and again, I guess to flash forward, I ended up sort of leaving Minneapolis, knowing that I didn't want to be a bartender anymore, and again, this was, 15 years ago, and, knowing that my father had just died and my brother and sister were moving on with their families, and I'm like, I really just want to do something different. So I ended up going out on the road with the show, selling T-shirts, and it was fun. Like, I had a really, really great time.
So you started, like, supporting her passions, and it sounds like in that early stage in your relationship, a kind of comfort or reassurance that you received from her was she showed up for you when you had a sensitive moment in your life or a tender experience or a challenge in your life, and the way that she showed up for you, I imagine, maybe reassured you, like, this is someone that is going to stick with me or by my side. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
I think so. And I think at the time, and again, my father dying, I think I also just wanted to get out of my comfort zone, like, be like, I want to do something else. Like, I don't want to sit here stagnant doing the same thing night after night. So I think that because of what she was doing and because of the way that our relationship was going, that it did sort of inspire me to do that, which ended up changing basically my entire life. So it ended up being, a very positive thing, and the fact that it, like I said, it was just super fun. I just, the entire cast was like, it was like 80% gay guys, and which was, I guess, a little bit out of my comfort zone, which, it was like fine, it was great, but it was just so much fun. Like, I just had such a great time. So, looking back, I wouldn't change it. It was awesome.
And so how long did you guys date before you got engaged or married?
It was like 9 months.
9 months?
It was less than a year. It was just about less than a year.
That you got engaged?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, we got engaged.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess it was
11 months, actually, my birthday.
Yes, because we met in 2008 and then we got engaged in October 2009. So I guess it was just less than a year. Yeah.
And how did you know, or how did you both know that each of you was each other's person, life partner? Like, what were the signs that you felt like, I feel very sure of this decision?
Okay.
After you.
Okay. Well, I had just come from living in LA for a while, and my girlfriends and I there were all single and dating and just like failing at dating, and then just having like really great dates, and then we would, meet up for coffee with the girlfriends and, chat about it, and then it's like just totally ghosted, and it's like am I like making this up that this was a really nice date? And then of course there were guys that you met that were like, okay, so like we're gonna check the box that like that's not, no, like that's just like that's gonna be a deal breaker, that's gonna be a deal breaker. So when I met Patrick, I remember calling my mom the next day, my girlfriend Tiffany the next day, my girlfriend Marissa the next day, and just being like, I've met him. And they're like, oh my God. And I was like, well, I went through all the check, I was like, he's this, he's that, he's, he's close with his family, he owns his own house, he's like, he's respectable, he's funny, he's like, I wouldn't say metrosexual, but I was like, he's a city guy, but he's like rugged. And then like the last thing, I was like, he's charming, he's funny, he plays a musical instrument. And then I was like, oh, and he's really handsome. Like that was like the last, it was like all these other things. And I was like, oh, right. And he's like really kind of cute.
I guess all those things, except she's not rugged.
I'm not rugged.
But I guess for me, again, it was because when she was in town with the show, and we spent a lot of time together, like every day. And then when I went out on tour, we were spending every day together all the time. And it just worked. Like it was like, I really hate to like trivialize it like that, but it just did. Like we just had fun, and we liked, traveling around and going out with the people after the show, and going to good restaurants and stuff, and and we just ended up having a lot in common, and that's as simple as that, I guess.
So were there any like compatibility, for her, she kind of had like a mental checklist of sorts of, I want him to have these qualities. Did you have anything like that, or was it more of a feeling for you, or what kind of factors were really important for you in choosing someone?
I think it was, she just really is a very positive person, and a lot of times I'm not. So I felt like maybe we balance each other out in that way. I don't think that I had a checklist per se, but I felt like, when interacting with people, she just made it a lot easier because she's, very animated, very, like, really good with people, just a good person overall. So it would just, I don't know, it just, I don't think I have, like, there's not an equation. It's not like I don't really have a checklist. I think it's just all of those things. And she's also very attractive and has the body type that I like. That's just a
I think that's
a very
valid,
superficial thing. But
people are attracted to visual things.
So yeah, it wasn't like I don't think I had a checklist, but it was, I think it was something that.
It sounds like she balanced you out.
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
Okay, so you got engaged within a year, and did you get married soon afterwards, or?
Yeah, it was
2011. So it was
2 years.
Yeah, it was almost 2 years later. Yeah.
2 years later. So did you guys move in together? Like, were you guys? What was that initial first few years like? Did you get a chance to live with each other before you got married, or?
Yeah. So we lived with each other on the road, sometimes with another couple and sometimes just ourselves. And each time, like, in a new city, and this was back before Airbnb, but it was like a corporate rental where, there's furniture and some, like, household things, but it's like you're just basically bringing in your suitcase for the month, and, it's better than a hotel. So we did that, and then when we left the tour, I came back here and moved into your house, and we did some home renovations.
Yeah, and that was interesting because we were both in a huge transition because she had left the show, which was her career, and I was looking to do something new. So yeah, that was 2010, and we both were kind of just like, all right, let's just see what we're gonna do, because neither of us really knew. I mean, I kind of had an idea, but you didn't really know at all what you were gonna do. You went through a bunch of different things, and we did some renovations to the house, and kind of tried our best.
So when you guys were living together early on, was that just reassuring? Like, yep, no big surprises here. This is kind of what I expected it to go like, or was there like a kind of adjustment period where it's like, okay, these are things that really annoy me, or like, did you guys have some kind of like a lot of compromising to do in those first few years living together, or was it just a pretty natural fit? Like, his lifestyle is pretty similar to mine.
I think for the most part, I mean, like, a couple of, like, things that's, like, nitpicky, but for the most part, and then especially when we were staying with our friends, another couple, it's like you're also living with another couple, so everyone is pretty much on their best behavior, but, we all got along, and...
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think, when we moved back, I felt like it was a fairly easy transition because I already had a life here, and she already knew my family, and she knew some of my friends, but now has sort of been ingrained into that. And I guess, our worry was just like, what are we going to do? Like, what are we going to do for the rest of our lives work-wise? And she did really well financially on the show, and so, like, we didn't have huge money issues, but at the same time, it was like, how are we going to make a living? Like, how are we going to, like, go forward? And I think that was probably, the biggest challenge at that time.
Yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit more, because one of my questions is going to be, what is a big challenge that you faced in your relationship and had to overcome together? You already mentioned one previously with your dad passing away early on, and now it seems like the next big one was you both kind of figuring out your careers at the same time. How did you guys support each other during that transition? Did you guys help each other in any way, or was it just kind of like you're doing your own thing, I'm doing my own thing? Or how did that look for the two of you together as you're both doing that?
I guess I had a more definitive idea of what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go, and so Lauren, of course, was always like, great, go for it. yours was a little bit more challenging because you really had no clue in what direction
Right.
you wanted to go. And the fact that you're actually where you are now is like, it's kind of a, 180. But yeah, I don't know. I think, to answer your question, honestly, I think that even just of late, in these past few months has kind of been really part of the challenge for her when trying to juggle this career that she's taken on, and she's like been very, very stressed out. And like, I don't even know if I really want to continue doing this. And, I guess for a test of a relationship, I think that's definitely been one that's, that we've been able to just like, support each other through that situation. And, we don't have kids, but our dog just had a big operation. He had this lump. It was like a softball-sized lump in his back. And they had to take that out. And so there was all these things, and she was kind of having daily struggles with trying to deal with all that and juggle all that. So.
Yeah, you've been really helpful, like this past month, for sure. Because it's Patrick's downtime a little bit with his work and not traveling as much, so you're home more, which is great because usually I'm juggling the day-to-day at home and working from home if he's gone on shoots, and then it all kind of falls to me. But you've really stepped up, like stuff that that you're not typically, like the Costco runs, like for example. I mean, I know that sounds so silly, but it's like I have always done that. Like you've never really had to do that. Maybe every.
I kind of like it.
I know, and you're really
free samples. Left
you're
and right.
really, really good at it. Like you come back.
I never actually had a free sample at Costco.
You should take it.
I've never done it. I don't know. It's weird. I've just never done it.
So that's a really good point. Is just kind of like, can you elucidate a little bit on like the little things that he's kind of helped you out with as you're feeling stressed?
Well,
just to give people ideas of like, if you want to show up supportive for your partner, like some people are like, I just don't know how to help you. Like, can you give some ideas?
So like, of course, to start, it kind of was like, why are you even, why are you so stressed? And it's like, I just feel this huge weight on my shoulders. You put it into perspective for me the other day. It was just like, first of all, I do have an end date, which is good. Like when the programs or the work that I'm doing, this won't be forever. So that's one thing that it's like, okay, this is just busy for now. We've just got to get through this for now. But even just like shifting my work day attitude, because I do work for myself and I don't necessarily have to do things from 8 to 5, because I have a hard time sleeping and a hard time getting up and getting going, and I feel like because everyone else is at their offices and I'm going to be getting lots of emails. But Patrick was like, okay, well, what if you just worked a little bit later and started later but also ended later, and kind of shifted your pattern? This way you wouldn't feel like you can sleep and feel like rested and then start your day, and then just kind of managing the new normal of the stress. And it's like, you're going to get through it, and it's going to be stressful for right now. But then the next year, when this, this time of year comes around, it's like, okay, yeah, I know what this feels like. I know that we're going to get through it.
So it sounds like he helps to offer some new perspectives or suggestions when you're stressed out with work, or almost like solutions for things that you're going through.
I'm always coming at it from like an emotional standpoint. And
so maybe he lends like some practical, hey, this is what you can try. And it sounds like he's also like, he puts things into perspective, like, this isn't going to last, this schedule is not going to last forever. Right. And it sounds like he also has faith in you with like the words of encouragement and things that
has been actually a big one. Thanks for bringing that up, because you're like, a lot of the times you do say, you're like, you just don't like you don't have enough faith in yourself, and you're like, you've got this. And so when you say that to me, I'm like, you're right. Like, I don't like remember that it's like, I can do this.
Yeah.
I love that just a minute ago you said you're an emotional person, and here you go. Yeah. Tears are coming out.
Yeah. Well, the thing is,
it's the artist in you.
The thing is that I've been doing what I've done long enough and I've had my own nervousness and jitters and know sort of the ins and outs of it. And I'm like, you know what? The next time that you're presented with this challenge, you're going to be like, I've already done this.
Yeah.
It becomes easier and easier and easier as you go through it. And coming from her being, a dancer and doing some of these other things, this isn't like, it's not normal for a lot of people.
Right.
Like, it's not normal to be thrown at the wolves and just to have all this stress and have all this weight on your shoulders without any, without a lot of experience having that. So you need to kind of go through that. Anybody does, I think. And if you don't, then good for you. But I think most people do to be able to sort of grow in their job and, grow doing anything, I guess. You kind of just need to be put through the ringer to be able to handle it.
So what I'm hearing too, like in what you mentioned earlier, is that it almost sounds like his confidence in you gives you confidence.
Yeah.
So it's like you're an amplifier for her in a way. And it's interesting too that earlier you said that what drew you to her was her positivity, and you said, oh, sometimes you're not as positive as you believe you are. But it sounds like to her you're pretty positive, like you're a positive force in her life. So it's just I don't know if she brought that out of you more, the positive.
I mean, sometimes I'm not gonna, I don't want to paint I don't want to give a broad brush on this because obviously we have our, knockdown, drag out kind of fights, and she's Italian too, so don't even get me started on that part. Her family and her, it's like
we have one level of volume.
Yeah, I don't even get a word in. I'm like, what's going on over there? There's a lot of yelling. But I think, and again, one thing that I was going to say, which I really did want to drive home, was that I think what's really important, at least for us anyway, is that we have our fights for sure, like a lot, but we also have a very short memory when it comes to that kind of thing.
Ooh.
You know what I mean? So it's like
you forgive easily.
Yes.
Yeah.
And speaking, bringing it all the way full circle to my dad, he was always good at that. Like, he would kind of lose his mind, and then, it was almost like, are you okay mentally? Like, that doesn't make any sense. But I think it's really helpful. I really do. And I think, not holding a grudge to a certain extent, don't get me wrong, there's certain things that, obviously people are, that just are kind of unforgivable. But for most little stupid things, it's like, if you have a short memory for that kind of thing, then I think that does help in the long term.
That's really good advice. So for the minor missteps, try to have a short memory. Like, hey, they didn't load the dishwasher right, or whatever it might be. Forgive those little things. It's not worth holding on to them. So this kind of brings me into the next question: is what relationship tips would you advise for others who are married or growing long-term relationships that have really helped your relationship? One of them being, as you mentioned, have a short memory when it comes to minor events.
Mm-hmm.
Forgive quickly. Anything else that's really aided your ability to stay together for 12 years?
I would say, just knowing that you're not always going to be right. And even when, and sometimes even when you are right, sometimes you just have to let it go. You just have to let it go because, it's not worth, and usually it's over, silly things, but it's like, if he's hard-headed and I'm hard-headed, that's we're not going to get anywhere. And so sometimes it's just I've had to learn, being the stubborn Italian that I am, is that where it's just you know what, I'm just going to let you have this one because it's really not. It's not worth going back and forth over
picking your battles is what it sounds like.
Yeah.
So you keep in mind, is this really worth fighting for?
Is this really exactly? Is this really worth? Yeah.
I'll just let him have this one. It's not worth it.
I disagree with that. I'm always right.
Exactly.
However, I'm joking, of course, but I think you really, if it's a good partnership, I think that and this goes across whether it's relationship or work or whatever, people are just more experienced or know more about a certain subject than you do. So, if there's something that she thinks that I might know, she'll come and ask me, and vice versa. It's I don't know everything. I don't, like, if there's something that, and I can't really think of an example right now, but...
Well, I rely on you for, like, everything in the house, like, fixing that. If I owned a house by myself, and I would just be, like, calling, you know, maintenance or, like, whoever. Like, I'm going to call a plumber. I'm going to call an electrician. I mean, I can change a light bulb, but, like, I'm not going to... This one, I mean, you like to learn things, and even if you don't know how to rewire something, you're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I mean,
you don't like...
And I get it, you know, it goes deeper than that. I think there's also certain things like relationships with a certain person or something like that. Like I don't know this person, and just, again, like with your colleague that we've been discussing, like, you probably know you know this person better than me. I'm just throwing ideas out. Mm-hmm. Like, you're like, no, I spent time with this person. So I guess my point is that the fact that anybody would be too proud to, like, ask your partner for their advice on something is just stupid. Like, why would you not do that?
So kind of keeping in mind that you as a person don't know everything, you can't do everything, know when to ask for help from your partner, and also just kind of trust their strengths is what I'm hearing. Like, just recognize, like, hey, there's some things I'm stronger at, some things she's stronger at, respecting each other's, I guess, domains, and not being afraid to, like, rely on each other for help or ask for help. Is that accurate for your relationship?
I think so.
Good. Really briefly also, do you feel like can you share a little bit, if you're comfortable sharing, about the role models you had as children from your parents, if they if you came from a 2-parent household, and if that relationship is kind of similar to your relationship now, or if it's very different? Did that influence your relationship that you have currently? Like, I don't know if either of you feel comfortable sharing just the dynamics of your upbringing.
Yeah. I grew up with my mother and father in the same household, and it was a very traditional upbringing as far as my dad worked full-time, my mom worked part-time, but was really the homemaker, took care of us, was our chaperone, our chauffeur rather, like taking us to all the activities. And then, of course, my dad was the breadwinner, which, of course, in most households now, that's not the case. But I think that I see a lot of my parents in our relationship, because like the taking care of, like, I feel like I am good at taking care of you, and, like, you are the main provider, not just monetarily, but, like, you are you're like heading our future, our finances, our long-term goals, our plans, and I feel like maybe I am more of, like, the nurturer of the family.
Well, and don't tell her dad I said this, but he actually is a role model, because he just really is such a good guy. He's just a good guy. He just is, like, he's really solid, and almost annoyingly doesn't, like, thinks about other people all the time. It kind of drives me insane. I'm like, dude, you don't have to worry about picking us up at the airport, like, right on time. And he's like, you're 1 minute late. But anyway, I mean, my childhood was not nearly that, that traditional.
By the way, guys, I really wish you guys could see this, but Lauren was cheering up as Patrick was talking about her dad. He was so sweet. Continue. Continue saying sweet things.
Yeah. My childhood wasn't nearly as traditional as that. It was much more tumultuous, and considering my mom, I probably shouldn't go into details, but...
I think his mom's great. But.
Yeah, I love my mom, and she's one of the strongest women I know for sure. That's not even a question. Mm-hmm. But my dad was, an alcoholic for a time, and just, he kind of was not great. But then he got sober, and he was awesome. So that was weird. But I still do look up to my mom. I probably don't tell her enough, but I mean, she's very strong. She's been through a lot.
Yeah, she's a survivor for sure.
And she still keeps, going at it.
Mm-hmm.
I still think I have that survivor instinct because of her, because that, she took a lot of shit Sorry
Okay.
if I can
Yeah.
swear on the
Yeah.
recording, and still
Took
just
a lot of
kind
shit from you too.
yeah.
And so now it's nice to see it come full circle because I see you showing up for her so much, especially in these past like 5 years.
yeah.
5 years since Rick passed.
Like, I'm just curious, if because you didn't have, like, I guess, quote unquote, the perfect
Yeah.
parental, like, they didn't have the perfect marriage. If anything that you saw or experienced influenced your decisions in being a husband or how you went into a relationship.
Probably. I mean, subconsciously, but all that happened when I was, younger. I think it was like 13 or 14 when
Okay.
all of that happened. So at that time, yes, I was like, yeah, I really don't want to act like that. But when my dad did actually get sober, like, he ended up being a really, really great guy, and he turned it around full circle.
Yeah.
And he was kind of more like your dad at that time, where he was so selfless, where it was like, he helped at that time. He helped one of my girlfriend's friends move, and I was like, who does that? Mm-hmm. So that's the kind of guy that he was once he sobered up. So, I guess at that time, I when I was that young, I wasn't thinking about like how this affects my relationships. Like, I didn't even know what was going on.
Yeah.
But now thinking back on it, yeah, I mean, I think that obviously had an impression, whether it was for good or bad, it definitely specific. I always said that I from on so many levels when I was a kid, I always look up to my grandfather, because he was like John Wayne, like literally looked like him. He was in like World War II. He was a super badass. When they had a cabin up in northern Minnesota, and at that time we were living in Maryland, and I would go there and be able to shoot guns, and I was like, this is the coolest guy I've ever met. Mm-hmm. And he was. I mean, he was. Everybody that known him. In fact, if you talk to Susie and Joe, maybe they brought him up too. I don't know, but he just was. He was just a real badass guy, and I always did. He was. If I was to point to anybody, I guess, as a role model as a kid, it would probably be him.
Okay, interesting. And then you, Lauren, it sounds like your parents. Would you say they had a good relationship, or what are like a few like ways that you describe the dynamic of their relationship that you saw when you were a child?
No, they definitely had a great relationship. And again, like the Italian, like, was there bickering? Yes. But if there was anything deeper going on than that we had, my sister and I had no idea. So mm-hmm. if there were any deeper struggles than just, the kind of little bickering day to day, then they kept that to themselves. Because otherwise, yeah, I mean, if we ever had money issues, I didn't know about it. They were able to provide for me and my sister. I mean, we were middle class, but like, if there were any wants, they would figure out a way to make it happen, I think. So,
okay. So
yeah.
You weren't like stressed as a child or anything like that? Yeah. Okay.
No.
Well,
no,
sunshine, sunshine and rainbows.
No, definitely not. But it is interesting. All their friends, all their good friends that live out there, they're all still married too. It's almost like a cultural thing.
Yeah, like an Italian cultural thing.
Yeah, where it's like, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. They bicker all the time, but they're just like, the love just runs so deep, I guess, that it's
maybe
like,
they're quick to forgive. Yeah.
like I said, I think that is kind of that's kind of the one thing I would point to that, like, that I could say, like, what is the one thing? And I guess that would probably be it.
Well, this has been really interesting. And again, thank you for being so open with your backgrounds, even sharing a bit about, your early childhoods, and any parting words of advice that you have for someone that is either a newlywed couple or wanting to find their person in life. Any words of hope or wisdom or kind of parting advice you'd give?
I don't know.
You've already given so much.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, I kind of, I would probably say it's like nobody is perfect. So if you're out there and you're just like, well, this isn't going to work because, they do this or whatever. Again, some of those like little nitpicky things, like they chew with their mouth open, or, whatever it is that it's just like, this isn't going to work. It's going to be, you might be alone for a long time. There are going to be, nobody's perfect. Everyone has their faults and their flaws, and it's whether or not you're going to accept them for who they are and get past those little things. So if you're out there kind of like looking for the perfect one,
right,
and the perfect one for you isn't, necessarily gonna, it's not that they're a perfect person, but
that's so good, by the way. Don't look for perfection.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to be alone for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, because you'll just end up being kind of disappointed. I mean, obviously, you have to have some parameters, right?
Standards.
Like some standards, but at the same time, it's like if you're going to throw away, somebody for
small things,
and not, like Patrick had said, like be easy to either forget or forgive, or move past like somebody's little quirks, or it's like if you have a laundry list of pet peeves, you're
right.
not
be flexible.
Yeah, you need to be a little.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we know people exactly like that, and I guess I know, and people like to say it, and I don't disagree with it when people are like, don't settle. But I mean, like there's an extreme to that. You know what I mean? That's like like if you're talking about a checklist and there's just not that one check, and you're basing it purely on that, that's probably not a good way to go about it.
Yeah.
But I would say that for us, when we met, Tinder and all that stuff didn't exist. It was like the superficial relationship that people can do through online dating sometimes. And again, we still know plenty of people that have met online. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I feel like maybe that's just become way less intimate, or far more like trivial. When you meet somebody online, that it's just like, oh, on to the next, and it's like that. I don't think that that's a good way to go about it. I mean, if you're just trying to get laid, go for it, man. But if you're trying to find a relationship, you're going to need to give it a little bit more time than that.
A little bit more time, but at the end of the day, it's like find somebody who you just like being around. And I mean, for us, it's because, especially because of our lifestyles and our jobs, we are still like, when we first started, we were together 24/7 pretty much, and like the way our jobs are now, it's like we spend a lot of time together. Yeah. And most people don't, they go to work and then they come home and have things to talk about. Mm-hmm. And so it's like finding at the end of the day that we still have stuff to talk about after.
So someone that you can spend a lot of time with and still be interested in and still be engaged with. Yeah. And I like what you said earlier. It sounds like, I don't know if this is your view, but don't rely solely on the apps. Like, put yourself out there too in the real world, because those apps can, like you mentioned, kind of create this pattern of superficial relationships and quick and easy, like, or maybe even what you're saying, Lauren, like seeking perfection on those apps. Like, I don't know this person, and they, are 1 inch shorter than what I would like them to be, so it must not be for me. Yeah. I think you guys are onto something where it almost does heighten your sense of seeking perfection when you see a whole repository of people at your disposal as potential options. Whether or not they are actually interested in you is another matter, but you have all these potential options, so you almost mentally might easily fall into the trap of seeking perfection, like, well, this person's profile is almost what I'm looking for, but maybe profile number 1005 might have exactly what I'm looking for. Yeah. So,
or getting your hopes up on the profile and then meeting somebody in person, and just being like, I didn't have that.
All right.
Like I had my hopes up, and then like I haven't actually meeting them in person.
And again, it's not something that we can relate with because that didn't exist. So I can't give you specific examples, but at the same time, it still does happen, just exactly how we met. I mean, you literally can just catch somebody's eye across the bar, and it's like, I'm not gonna say it's easy because it's not, but. It's still that stuff still happens. Like you can do it. It's
organic.
Really not that difficult.
Yeah. So meeting people organically is what he's advocating for. Like, don't put all your eggs in one basket, the dating app basket. Also put yourself out there in real life, it sounds like.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know, I don't know why you wouldn't. It's way more fun that way.
Yeah. Well, wonderful. You guys have been so delightful. Thank you, Lauren and Patrick, for joining me today. This has been so interesting to hear your background. Thank you for all the advice and your generosity and sharing your life with us.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
As we wrap up another episode of Connection Artist, I want to express my gratitude to you for listening and exploring how we can all grow and better connect with one another. I created this podcast to support your relationship success and happiness. If you found value in this episode, here's how you can support me and help spread the word about this podcast. First, subscribe to this podcast and share it with 10 friends. If you share this education with 10 people and they share it with 10 people and so on, we can grow this movement of creating a more loving and caring world. If you'd like to show your support on a personal level, visit www.analuca.com. That's ANALUCA. Explore my heart-centric products and education, from poetry books to online courses, art prints to apparel. Every purchase directly enables me to continue producing episodes and sharing these valuable stories and insights with you, because this podcast is not free to create. Please consider buying something I've made with my heart and soul to connect with you. Discover handmade heart-shaped art prints and hoodies featuring my exclusive Crypto Love Drops collection at www.artbyanaluca.com. Read about the inspiration behind these beautiful heart artworks at cryptolovedrops.com. These make really great, unique gifts for your friends, family, and spouse, and serve as a lasting symbolic reminder of your love for them. Or if you enjoy journaling or you'd like to start, get my 15-minute daily guided journal for confident mindset titled Yes, I Can. If you want more stories, buy my poetry book, The People We Meet, available on Amazon or directly on my website, artbyanaluca.com. Just click on the Books tab. Listen to my music album called Reprise on Spotify. Fun fact, the opening music track that you heard on this podcast is actually composed by me and is featured in my music album. If you want to learn how to strengthen your self-worth, get my digital ebook called Well Valued, which features a 30-day blueprint for building self-worth. Or if you're single and want to learn how to assess and find your most compatible dating partner using AI, get my digital course called Well Matched. These products are all designed to strengthen your self-worth and relationships and are all linked in my website, www.analuca.com. Also, don't forget to check out my hand-illustrated apparel line at www.laughstoself.com. I hand-designed really funny, cute illustrations that made me laugh, but also serve the purpose of spreading humor, love, and connection with others. That apparel line of hoodies, t-shirts, and sweaters are exclusively available only on my website, so if you want to wear something unique, check out laughstoself.com. Connect with me on social media for podcast and life updates. You can follow me on Instagram or TikTok at AnaLucaOfficial. And lastly, if you're based in the United States and would like to be interviewed on the podcast, send me a message at myconnectionartist@gmail.com to potentially join me as a guest on this show in the future. Remember to subscribe to this podcast and leave a 5-star review. It helps a lot in reaching more listeners like you who can benefit from this information. Thank you for being a part of this Connection Artist community. I'm wishing you so much love and happiness in your relationships. Stay tuned for the next episode.